new tough guys. But there's one guy in particular that I think, listen, a lot of people that, like, after you move back to New England and everything, there's other friends that I had that know this guy, but I wanted to talk about Pete, because one of the things that I did on this show was I talked about Pete. Obviously, I don't think you knew specifically some of all of the details about this guy, but I got to know him very well. And so, remember a couple months ago, I said, holy shit, look at this article from like 1989 or whatever the fuck. But what was your first impression of Pete?
Well, for the first 3 or 4 months, we knew him. We were going into his restaurant. We were eating pizza. The weather got cold, and, for mid-Atlantic purposes, 30 degrees is not fucking cold.
Right.
But we didn't know any better. We were dumb. But, I asked him about soup one day. I said, is there any way you could make like a chicken noodle or you got something kicking around in the kitchen? He goes, how about some pasta fagioli? And I had seen it in menus. Of course, I'd seen it in mob movies or whatever, but sure, 2 bowls, one for me, one for you. And, just about for the next 2 months during the winter, even during the holidays, we would get there and we had 2 steaming bowls of pasta fagioli brought to us within a couple of minutes. And we didn't even put it in an order. We were pretty lazy back then. We stuck with pizza. But he just very salt of the earth, very blue collar kind of guy. But you could tell he was not one to be trifled with. He was one that demanded respect almost silently. And if you didn't give him the respect, then you'd get his ire. Then he'd raise his voice. And I only heard him do it twice, once to a delivery man and once to somebody on the telephone. And he never talked on the telephone there on the floor of his restaurant. It was always in the back offices area, but you could hear him yelling.
Yeah, he was definitely not one to fuck around.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
And, we, of course, you and me being young kids were like, yeah, he must have done this. He must have been, XYZ in the mafia, blah, 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 blah. Maybe his new name and his new family was, set up by the feds and the witness protection, whatever. We didn't fucking know. We were dumb.
No, I had no clue. Obviously years later, I definitely would know because I'd gotten very close to him.
But we speculated. We speculated back and forth.
He carried himself a certain way,
He did, and we saw him dressed up in that suit once.
Yeah,
I think he was going to a funeral for a boxer who was also a fellow New York.
Carmine LaCursi. Yeah. Really quick story about my buddy Pete. So this story has to do with, if you're unfamiliar with who Pete is, go to my last show and listen. At the time that this particular incident happened, it's the time Pete's almost got me clipped. Not really, but at the time I had left. I was working for a big company, a multi-million-dollar automotive company, and I had transferred to a different company. I left one company, went to another. And the way that we kind of had it set up was, Pete owned a lot of pizza places around the area, and sort of the deal that we worked out. Like Pete was opening up a bunch of different places, training people how to run the business, and then he was like leaving them to it and taking a kickback from the profits. And one of the deals we had set up with a couple of them was if these guys who own these places would deliver pizza, we'd do free work on their car. Not a lot, just something equal lesser value. This way guys didn't have to spend money for lunch and whatever. And so we had a pretty good thing going on. Guy would come in, he'd pull his navigator in, he'd have 5, 6, 7 pizzas. We had like 10 employees. We'd unload the pizza, and then he'd get work done to his car for free. And so we would have lunch, and it was working that way for a long time. But then something happened, and it caused a problem for me because I'm the one that knew the guys. And so and it's going to lead into a rabbit trail of something else, but I'm going to make my point clear. So what ended up happening was, apparently on one of my days off, the general manager of this place called in a favor from this guy who we're going to call Mo, for example. And he was directly involved with business with Pete and some other things. And basically, he would come in, drop off pizzas, like I said earlier, but it really wasn't Mo. Mo was attached to another guy, and I don't want to say the other guy's name, but this other guy had just opened a pizza place. And I guess that they worked out I guess they ordered lunch from the place. not realizing Pete was like sort of the shadow fucking owner of this joint. And they basically worked out a deal with him. Oh, you come in, you give us pizza, we'll work on your car, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they did this behind my back. I didn't know they did that. Had I known it, I wouldn't have allowed it, because this guy was just opening up this place. You can't do that to people. And basically what they did was this. Somehow they managed to order like a ton of food and did it on credit. And first of all, Pete's not the kind of guy that ever did credit. And this guy, this other guy that he was sort of training the business to and everything, was sort of trying to take off on his own. And so the guy guy had cash flow, but not like that. And so what ended up happening was they ordered all this food with a promise to pay him later on that day, and they never did. And so a couple of days go by, and I keep getting calls from Pete on the phone, and he's pretty patient with everything. Hey, how you doing? You need to call me. I got to talk to you about something. And I was busy, and I didn't return his call, which was a huge fucking mistake. Because then one day he shows up at my work, says, come on, take a ride, we got to talk. We get in a car, he's like, yeah, how come you haven't called me? I've been busy doing this and that and the third. And I look at his face, and his face is totally different. It looks like a fucking demon. And I could tell he's holding his anger back. I said, what's the problem? He says, this fucking guy at your place fucking ordered like $200 worth of food and never showed up to pay the fucking bill. And I was like, what's that got to do with me? And he looked at me, and I shit you not, said, this is your fucking fault. And he put his finger right in my face. This is on you. And it was an important lesson, which I'm going to get to. And so what could I do? I said, Pete, I'm between bills, I'm between checks, I don't have cash flow. This was fucking over probably 15, 16, 17 years ago. And he says, you got to make it right. You're going to go in and you're going to apologize to the guy. And I'm going with you. And I'm like, yeah, but the bill. And he says, I'll take care of the fucking bill. You just never let this happen. So he goes in there, and I had to fucking grovel to this other guy and apologize for what people did. And then I fucking, like 2 weeks later, went in and paid the bill. And that was a situation that got me in a lot of trouble. And it's not because I did anything wrong, but because these people were representatives of me. They were coworkers, friends, whatever the fuck the case may be. Their actions made me look a fool. And that's what the moral of this story is that the people you fucking surround yourself with are supposed to represent your interests in the best of who you are. So if you hang out with flunkies and they give you a bad reputation, you should have to pay for that. Was it my responsibility? Absolutely. Because if it wasn't for me, they wouldn't have been able to do that, and they took advantage of me. They took advantage of my friendship, and it almost got me in a lot of fucking trouble. Yeah, over $200. It was the principle, which leads me to this next kind of thing, which I'm not going to get totally into, but I'm just going to explain it. And it's a situation where when you say things, when you hang out with me, and just example purposes only, and I introduce you to A, guy B, guy C. They're not being nice to you because they like you. They're not being nice to you for any other reason but because they like me. Because they have respect for me and I have respect for them. And the minute that you breach is a better word. The minute you breach that with them, it becomes my responsibility. Because I brought you around, I made an introduction, so if somebody goes bad, it's my fault. I get held responsible for that. Now, on one hand, yes, it's my responsibility. But on the other, if you're stupid enough to do dumb shit, then that falls on you. I can only uphold my point of view, which is, okay, I brought the guy around, so this heat is because of me. I apologize. I'll do whatever you want me to do. And that's the reality of it. The lesson is the people that you introduce to people, you better make for damn sure who they are. And people make mistakes and they do stuff out of stupidity, anger, rage, jealousy, and I get all of that. But at the same time, you can't step over the line and then try to take it back and expect people to be nice about it. You can't take it over the line and expect to get a pass because you know me. Because the minute that you walk over that fucking line, you're on your own. And that's just the truth. And that's in all kinds of forms of life. It's not just the streets. It's not just this. It's business. It's everything. The minute that you're willing to step over the line and say dumb shit, you got to be an adult to cover it on your own. because that's your character, not mine. You know, your character might be clean with me, but if it's not clean with my friends, then I got no use for you. And that's the truth. And people are justified in being angry about shit like that. There's a protocol, there's a respect, and there's a line you don't cross. And my loyalty is spoken for, so to speak. When I say that, what I mean is I'm going to be loyal to my friends. You disrespect them, you're disrespecting me. You fuck them, you're fucking me. And that's just how I see things. And I think if too many people live with this fucking follow mentality, they follow everybody else around. Fuck that, be a leader. Be a leader. Don't let people take advantage of other fucking people, but by all means accept responsibility because you make a fucking introduction, but what happens after the fact ain't your fucking problem. And that's the truth. That's the absolute truth. And I stand by the people I'm loyal to a fault. To a fault. I will accept responsibility for it, but once it reaches a certain level and you don't want to listen, you're on your own. And that I know a lot of people like that. And I think if more people live that way and you know, accept responsibility for their own bullshit and don't try to like back out or weasel out of it by saying other shit, or, well, it's not this, you misunderstood this. Your words put you in that situation. And so the point is that just respect everybody. You know, you do that, you won't have a problem. You know, and it comes right back to the Pete thing. You know, if these guys had respect for me, they would have respected my friendship with that guy, and they wouldn't have done what they did, and they wouldn't have put me in that jam. But I put myself in that jam because I made it look easy. They borrowed on my reputation. And thank God, you know, it wasn't that big of a deal at the end of the day. But it was a lesson that I learned, is that you have to be culpable and responsible for what people you bring around do. It's like going to a party. You take your friend to a party who you know gets fucking drunk and breaks shit. What the fuck are you going to take him for? What do you expect is going to happen? And so this is one of the weird things that happened, and this is the reason why I'm bringing all this up. So, yes, they were a Sicilian group of mobsters that came into to the South, so to speak, and they ran shit. There was nobody that was going to fuck with them. I knew, and I know Pete very fucking well. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for a long, long, long time. But there was something that sort of happened right when The Sopranos was hot. My brother used to call me on the phone all the time. And I started hearing this weird clicking on my phone. And I didn't get what it was. I thought it was just bad reception or whatever. But the clicking would happen for about like 45 seconds to a minute at a time, then it would stop. And so my brother was joking with me and just, fucking call me from an outside number. Your fucking phone is tapped. Well, I thought it was hilarious, but I would call him from an outside phone. It was just fucking very strange. It was very fucking strange. So months later, I hear my dog barking her ass off downstairs, and it's not one of them normal barks. It's one of them barks that people are coming to the house. And so I race across the house and I look out, and here they come, the FBI. It wasn't hard to tell who they were because they are wearing the fucking blue, the fucking blue plastic fucking jackets with yellow letters FBI, and they had sheriff's deputies with them. And I thought that it had to do with the fact that there was heat on Pete. Turns out it didn't have a whole lot to do with him. But basically, at that time that this happened, my father was at the house. For whatever reason, he took the day off. For the life of me, I don't understand why he did that. But, I hear the pounding on the door or whatever. I throw on my clothes. I go downstairs. And listen, the whole problem for me at that point was, okay, the FBI's here at my door. So you go through this whole mental thing of, okay, do they know about bookmaking? Do they know about this? Do they know about that? You go through all of these things that you've ever fucking done that could quite possibly be the reason why they're at your house. And so, your brain goes through this entire film strip of things that you could have possibly done, might have done. Is this coming back to haunt me? Is that coming back to haunt me? Is this because I know Pete? Is this because Pete's doing something I'm not aware of? Lots of things go through your fucking mind. So I come downstairs. The two agents are sitting there. They're flanked by sheriff's deputies. Then there were deputies outside. And at the time, I had never had any fucking FBI interaction in my life. I only knew what everybody else knew, what you see on TV and shit like that. And I didn't know if it was protocol to show up at somebody's house flanked by 7 fucking sheriff's deputies. It was a little fucking ridiculous. And the look on my father's face, holy shit. It was like my father didn't know what the fuck to say. He just stared at me like, what the fuck have you done? I didn't fucking know what the fuck is going on. And so the agent ends up introducing himself, and he tells me to sit down, and he hands, in his hand was a fucking manila folder, which was filled with a bunch of shit. And so he sits down and he shows me his fucking credentials, which is his fucking badge, because the FBI can't even conduct an interview with you without showing you their badge. They gotta prove who they are. So I just kind of acknowledged the badge with a fucking smirk and a nod. And my father, they looked at my father and said, "Could you please leave?" And my father was like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "I'm not going nowhere." I think it pissed off the agents. It didn't set off whatever they wanted from me. It wasn't going to set off right, because my father wasn't going to put up with shit. And he wasn't going to let them ask me anything fucking weird without him being there, so I could have at least some sort of backup of, yeah, they alleged this, they said this. And so the agent that was in charge of whatever the fuck he wanted opens up the folder and he starts shuffling through papers. And I knew right then I wasn't going to be arrested, because they just don't come and ask shit. They just come and arrest you. So I already knew out the gate, whatever the fuck it is they want to talk about or whatever they think they got, it ain't enough, because I'm sitting here. But I'm not going to lie to you. I was completely fucking rattled, because I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And then he sort of does, this is what he does. So he opens up the fucking manila folder, right? In this folder is a bunch of printouts, whatever. I can't see all of it, but he sits in front of me and he puts out 3 photos, okay? The first photo is of Jerry Capisci. And I'm like, what the fuck? The second photo is me and Pete and another friend of mine who I was going to have on this show standing outside of his restaurant shooting the shit. The third photo is of me, Pete, and another guy who I'm not going to fucking mention. Just hanging out, just shooting the shit, just talking. And then he opens his mouth. "Do you know Jerry Capisci?" And I shit you not, at that fucking point, I could not believe my fucking ears. This is why they're fucking here. Like, the photos of me and Pete, whatever, I can bypass that. I can explain that. But I didn't understand why Jerry Capisci's photo is sitting in front of me. So he looks at me and goes, "Jerry Capisci is a long considered an expert on organized crime and a well-known noted author. Blah, 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 blah. Did you threaten to fucking kill him?" And I'm just like, you got to be shitting me. Like, this is why they're fucking here, because I allegedly threatened to kill fucking Jerry Capisci, and that's not what I did. What it was, and this is going to get a little deeper here, because it's taken years for me to get to this point to understand the full fucking parameters of what happened to me. But he also wants to talk about a bunch of other things, but he just says, "Did you threaten Jerry Capisci?" And I says, "No, not that I'm aware of." And my father goes, "Well, let me see the threat." What Jerry Capisci had done was he was having a beef with a girl named Angela Clemente, who I fucking knew, and I'll get to how I knew her and what that was about here in a second. But allegedly, I said to him, you better be careful talking about people, because one day somebody's fucking stupid's going to hurt you because you talk nonsense and lies. That's basically what I said. When Jeremy got that, he ran to the fucking FBI. And what the FBI had to do was go to the Southern District of New York to get my background to basically, and I'm not exactly sure how this worked. This is what the agent explained to me, that Jerry had taken this case to the fucking FBI, and they had to go to federal court in order to get credit card information for America Online, which is one of the things I was using at the time. And so, he's rattling off this, that, and the third, and the fourth. And before I could even finish explaining that I didn't threaten nobody, this is what he says to me. "Do you know Angela Clemente? Do you know Anthony Center and Joey Testa? Do you know Carmine Persico?" And I sat there first of all, these questions are incredibly fucking broad. To know somebody, I would think you'd have to know what the fuck their favorite color is, what they like to drink. I knew them, but not like he was trying to fucking sort of tongue-in-cheek put me with them. And so right then I knew he wasn't there for crimes. He was just looking to bust balls. He was looking for information, and I don't got no fucking information. But I didn't know what the context that they were trying to fucking sum up. And at the time, I was living in fucking Virginia. I've never hit that, but I was living in Virginia. So for the FBI to waste time on a fucking somebody in the middle of fucking Virginia and bring up all this mafia shit was like retarded to me. I didn't understand it, but I would come to sort of realize later on that it involved Pete, it involved Angela Clemente, it involved Jerry Capisci, it involved Carmine Persco, and it involved fucking Greg Scarpa. It involved a whole bunch of people that I was unaware of. So, but of all people, like, how could Jerry Capisci pick my fucking, out of all the hundreds and thousands, and I talked to Jerry recently about this, believe it or not, of all the people he could pick out of a hat that threatened him, why me? And then I sort of, kind of over the years have sort of thought about it, like, why me of all fucking people? But now I know why. It also, so the feds are there to harass me about a bunch of bullshit, whatever. But their main crux of their information was they wanted to know how I knew people, in which I just fucking flatly denied knowing anybody. And then he hits me with, well, we've been listening to your phones, so you do know people. And that was where I kind of slipped up. And one of the things I should have done at that point was look at my father and say, this is over. Get them the fuck out of my house. Because they had the little clicking I heard on the phone was them. They were wiretapping me. They had taped my phone calls with people. I was getting phone calls from prisons. I was getting phone calls with people. They had me talking to Angela Clemente on the phone. All fucking nonsense. To this, guys. Some are nuttier than others. I think the reality is if you can be involved in the pizza connection for 4.5 years and never get caught, obviously you got millions of dollars at that point. You move your business to another area, then you get involved in the cocaine trade again. But this, if anything, this is a story of, it's about the people that you keep around you can be very dangerous. Everything that they did right or everything they did wrong all came tumbling down because of the people that they connected with. All three are very smart individuals, don't get me wrong. But Pete, of the three, was the smartest. He was the guy that was able to dodge murder charges. He was the guy that was able to stay off the radar. He was the guy who, for years after he got out of federal prison, was able to do and come and go as he pleased without any interruption whatsoever. And I'm not saying he was doing anything bad. I'm just saying, you do the math. Most people that do federal time in prison, et cetera, don't come out and open up 10 restaurants. I'm just saying. That's just the reality, and I don't want to say anything disparaging about him or bad about him, but I will tell you that of all the people that I have ever met in this lifestyle, he was the real deal. Low key, quiet, unassuming. If you didn't know him, you would never think in a million years he was involved in anything. He was just a quiet guy. And that's where I learned the difference between these fucking bums that you see on YouTube saying all this crazy nonsense rat shit and then real men. I've been in situations with people, not even talking about Pete, but I've been in situations with real people that they don't talk. They don't mention nothing. There are those that I talk to that'll say stuff to me, that they probably shouldn't, but it comes and goes in one ear and out the other. But with Pete, he'd never tell you nothing. It took a long time for me to get to know him to the extent where, he would trust me to do stuff. And so here's a little interesting story. So, and I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to have to sort of, the story that I'm about to tell you, I shouldn't say, but I'm going to anyway, because a long time ago, it doesn't matter anymore. So, more or less, he had called me on the phone and said, hey, you around? Yeah, I'm around. Hey, come on by. I want you to do me a favor. So I show up, and he's got like 15 pizzas he needs delivered. His delivery person isn't around. And I said, yeah, sure. I said, what do you want me to take 15? He goes, no, I just need you to take 2. And then when you come back, I got something for you. I said, all right. So I don't want to say the female I had in my car because she may listen to my show. She's a friend of mine. I said, listen, you be the navigator. You come with me. And Pete looked at me and said, maybe you shouldn't take somebody with you. Maybe you should just go by yourself. I said, I'm just delivering pizza. What the fuck do you care? He said, all right. So he gives me the red pizza bags. You know what they look like. And I get in the car, And I'm driving, and the fucking address he gave me was wrong. And I couldn't believe it. So I'm driving around for like 30 minutes. I got to deliver this goddamn pizza for him. And we took a turn, and we had set the pizza on the back seat. And as we took a turn around this huge bend, all of a sudden the pizza boxes come flying out of the little red, I don't know what the fuck, pizza heater, whatever you want to call it. And I'm still driving, and then finally I realized that Pete's 3s were 6s. He just did it backwards. So I'm like, okay, I know where we're going now. And I hear from my passenger seat, oh my fucking God. And I said, what? She goes, look, pull over and look. So we pull over, and I look, and what's weird is when I carried the pizza box, the pizza bag with the box, it was heavy as fuck. I'm like, this is the heaviest goddamn pizza I've ever lifted in my life. And so there was when he packed it, there were two boxes in there, and then there was a brown paper bag, and he put like stapled the bag shut and put that in there. So I figured, max, this is going to be like, what, weigh a pound? This fucking thing like weighed 20 fucking pounds. And I wasn't paying attention to it because I'm just trying to do what he wants me to do, whatever. And so when she says, oh my God, I stop and I pull over. And I look, and there's like money coming out of this fucking brown paper bag. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So I said to her, I says, do me a favor. I said, just put the fucking money in the bag and roll it up. She goes, but that's not the only problem, Jeff. Look. And I didn't want to look because I already knew. At that point, I knew enough about him. I knew enough about me. I knew enough about everybody that I was around in a circle. Ain't no pizza weighs 20 fucking pounds. So I looked at her. She looked at me. I says, just slide it back in. Put the top on, and let's just go. So we get to this house. It's a big fucking house on the water. And I ring the doorbell, and this big Russian guy comes to the door. He's like, where the fuck you been? And I was like, he wrote a 3. I fucked it up, my bad. And so he normally, like, I guess if I don't deliver pizza. I've never done this. So, normally you pull out the fucking Velcro thing and you slide it out. But he doesn't do that. He takes the whole thing from me, walks inside, and shuts the fucking door. And I'm looking at her like, how do I do? I don't know how to deliver pizza. What the fuck? So about 2 minutes later, the guy comes out, and he hands me like a stack of fucking money, like unreal, all rubber banded and everything. And then he goes to his pocket, he pulls out like $1,000, says, this is for you. And I'm like, he's overpaying. Like, what? At this point, I'm still not fucking realizing what's going on. So I take the money, I head back over to the place, I give him whatever this guy gave me. I said, oh, here's this, here's the bag, here's the money. And I said, the guy gave me a fucking $1,000 tip. Here, this is for you. I just drove 20 fucking miles, no big deal, or 10 miles. He goes, no. That's for you. Good job. I said, okay. And then he looks at me and goes, you look in the box? I said, nothing. It was pizza. He goes, sure it was. And that's as far as I'm going with it. So that was, oh God, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, easy. I don't think I delivered pizza. I don't think I delivered pizza. And so that's, listen, that's the way that guys do things. They don't tell you what's in the box. You just do what you're told. And it was clever. It was, hey, I just need you to do me a favor. Go take these pizzas down the street. Blah, blah, blah. He's speaking to me in Sicilian. Yeah, just go take the pizza. Just go take the pizza. You'll be fine. Keep your money. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. And then he asked me what took me so fucking long. I walk in. He's white as a ghost. What took so long? I was like, look, you wrote the fucking 3 backwards. What the fuck? He goes, no, you're supposed to reduce it by 3. It's a coded thing. I didn't fucking know. I didn't know a 6 was actually a fucking 3. I guess he thought I knew that, but I didn't. He should have fucking explained that to me, and he didn't. But it's just funny because even today I look back, and the last time I talked to him, I laughed about this. I says, you make the heaviest fucking pizzas I've ever lifted in my life. What was that, a deep dish? He starts cracking up. You're crazy. But yeah, I don't think I sold pizza. Oh, jeez, the things we get involved in. But that's the story of the Catones. And, as far as I know, Pete's doing okay. Having a stroke is a shitty fucking thing. It happens to good people. And Pete's a good guy. I don't care what anybody says. You can focus on the nefarious shit all you want. But people are multi-tiered. People are people are three-dimensional, and I always say that there is goodness in everybody, even serial killers. If you want to get real fucking technical, yeah, there's sick evil fucks that do shit like make face lampshades and stick hammers in their asses, whatever it is these fucking nut jobs do. But nobody's born like that. Everybody just sort of migrates and becomes that. So, if people want to say, oh, look, listen to him, he's glorifying this, he's glorifying a guy that did bad things. Listen, in an average day walking down the street, you pass people that are probably pedophiles, rapists, kid touchers, kid sniffers, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But at the end of the day, when anybody does, anybody that I know, right, if they're up to nonsense or they're up to doing whatever it is they got to do, what's that got to do with me? If I'm with them and they're not doing it, then I only know them through, hey, you're just Joe Blow. So whatever people do to make their money, to hustle, to do what they got to do, that doesn't affect me. That's them. That's their life when it's not with me. It's like the old saying, oh, I know this guy, he sniffs coke. I want nothing to do with him. Well, if he doesn't sniff coke around me, I don't give a fuck. If his addiction does not inhibit my facilitation to hustle or to make money, then I don't give a fuck. But the minute that it starts to create a problem for me doing those things, that's when you make the call. And it's the same thing I say all the time about gangsters, right? Because we have this big morality argument on this show of, oh, he's glorifying murders and this, that, and the third. And I'll say it, and I will say it till my dying breath, is that what anybody does prior to me knowing them is none of my fucking business, number one. Number two, it's none of my concern. And allegations are just fucking allegations until they're convicted of it. And when I mean convicted, I don't mean the FBI's version of events of being convicted. I mean, certifiably, there's nothing. They got him on wiretap saying, I killed him with a steel dildo while wearing a Bugs Bunny outfit at the time. Until they catch a motherfucker on video or wiretap saying that shit, I don't believe it. And I never will. You notice in mob cases, they never have fucking DNA. They could get DNA off a flea's dick in some murder charge in Pocatello, Idaho, but they never have it in a mob case. Why is that? And these are the weird things that keep me up at night. All right, so all that being said, we are going to send our best wishes to Pete and hope he gets better. Because he's a good guy, like a second father to me, and I wish him nothing but the best. And hope it goes well. I hate to see this guy, have to deal with not being able to live the final years of his life with some relative peace. But maybe God willing, something nice will happen, and he'll heal from some of this. It's not looking good, but it is what it is. So I wanted to thank everybody for listening to Mob Talk Radio. We'll be back